Rep the South Side whenever you pay with your White Sox debit card from Wintrust Community Banks and score perks like free ATMs, no monthly fees, and a $300 opening bonus. Pay with pride every time with Wintrust, Chicago's bank.
Hey everybody, it's 𝗪𝗏 𝗏𝗀. Welcome back. It's the White Sox podcast. Brought to you as always by Wintrust, Chicago's bank. Show your team pride with the White Sox debit card. Get yours at wintrust.com/Sox. Member FDIC, EHL lender. All right, so last Saturday, I'm looking at the box scores for the White Sox minor league affiliates, and I notice that the Kannapolis Cannonballers in low A stole 7 bases in a game against the Columbia Fireflies, the Royals low A team. It's 7 bases stolen in one game. And I looked it up, and Kannapolis would end up stealing 30 bases in the 6-game series. And for the season, Kannapolis has stolen 59 bags, the most of any team in all the minor leagues. And this team features some of the White Sox top prospects. You got Braden Montgomery, George Wolkow, Caleb Bonemer. They're all stealing bases. All of them. 7 players have 6 stolen bases or more. 9 have stolen 4 or more. And they've only played 16 games. So what's going on here? And who's running the show there? Well, it turns out it's first-time manager and first-time coach, former major leaguer, former Oakland A, Chad Pinder, who spent 7 years with the A's, just turned 33. And San Francisco Giants manager Bob Melvin, who was his manager in Oakland, has always said that Pinder would be a great manager one day. Well, now he is, and he's my guest on the podcast to talk about being a first-time manager, what he's seen from Montgomery, Wolkow, Bonomer, plus an under-the-radar prospect who is now on my radar. They call him Mogo, and how the Cannonballers are running wild in the minor leagues. Let's do it. All right, joining me, the manager of the Kannapolis Cannonballers, it is Chad Pinder. Chad, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Excited to be on.
All right, so I got a lot of questions about the Cannonballers and the prospects, but I first want to start with you, if you don't mind, because you retired from Major League Baseball. You had your whole Major League career with the A's for 7 years. You retired in 2023. It seemed like you had some baseball left in you. What led to your retirement, and what led to you becoming a manager in the White Sox farm system?
Yeah, I mean, physically, I did. I had a lot of baseball left in me, but mentally, emotionally, I was ready to go home and start a new chapter. My wife and I, our second child was born that December. Outside of winning the World Series, I had done everything I wanted to do, baseball wise. It was never, about the money for me. I got to play and become, best friends with the guys that I played with. We had some really good teams, and I got to the point where it was just it didn't matter if I was, I think a couple of my last couple games, I had awesome games, and it just wasn't the same. It was just I was going through the motions, and I didn't want to be like that. That was never the player that I was. And finally I was just I think it's time to go home, and went home and spent 2 years kind of bebopping around, and being a stay-at-home dad, and finally had an opportunity. I live in Charlotte, so had an opportunity, to go to instructs with the White Sox. And then after that, got offered this job, and it was kind of a no-brainer. Get to commute from home and still be around the family, and I'm very lucky and blessed that I kind of get the best of both worlds.
Who reached out to you? How did this all come about? What kind of connections did you have with the White Sox to make this happen?
So my agent went to 𝗵𝗻. Paul obviously went to 𝗵𝗻 as well.
Paul Janish, yep.
Yeah, Paul Janish. They've had a relationship for a long time, and I reached out to my agent, and I just said, hey, if I wanted to get back in baseball, selfishly, I'm thinking on the East Coast, and I wanted to be at the minor league level. I think that's where the most impact is. These kids are hungry. They want to learn, and no aspirations of getting back to the big leagues anytime soon. And so I asked my agent if he knew anybody with the White Sox, and he said, yeah, I know Paul well. Here's his number. I'll connect you guys. And, we hopped on a phone call, and then we got coffee when he was in town seeing the Knights. And then an opportunity presented itself to go out to Instructs for the first week because they had multiple teams in the playoffs. The staff was kind of spread out. So I went out there and just really enjoyed being around the young kids. And obviously I didn't have a job lined up or anything like that. I was doing interviews for other companies, like medical sale. I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. But going to Instructs kind of sparked that baseball bug back in me. And I told him when I left, hey, just let's keep the line tight. If anything presents itself for next season, I'd love an opportunity to be a part of something that you guys are doing here because, the people, the kids, I really do think the White Sox are trending in a special direction with personnel, the player development staff, the players, obviously. So I guess about a month or two later, it was right around after Thanksgiving, they called and offered the position here, and it was a no-brainer. And, he was like, you can think about it, for as long as you'd like. And I was like, my wife and I have been talking about it for months, so we're good. We're on board.
Well, your manager with the A's, Bob Melvin, he always said, you can confirm this for me if you'd like. He always said you would be a manager one day. Did you ever hear that from him?
Yeah, a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, I did. I was really fortunate in my time with Oakland as a platoon player. I pinch hit a lot, so I watched a lot of baseball. So I got to watch how the game was managed by him, and got to the point in my career where, I knew when I was pinch hitting before, innings before and things like that. I got to watch it from the manager's perspective because, I never wanted to get caught off guard. And yeah, I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from 𝗏𝗏𝗃, Darren Bush, who's over there still with 𝗏𝗏𝗃. Those guys were extremely impactful on me. And I always used to mess with Bomo. He'd say, hey, you're going to be a manager one day. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to do that. I think I'm more suited to do the first base coaching. But yeah, here I am managing, so.
All right, I got one more question about you, and then I'll ask you questions about this team. And this is kind of a painful question for me and everyone listening and watching, but you were on the A's in 2020 when you guys beat the White Sox in that Wildcard Series. You had the game-winning hit in Game 3, a 2-run single off of Evan Marshall, and I was looking at the box score, and it was painful for me to look at that team. The White Sox had Luis Robert Jr. was batting 7th. They were seemingly loaded. It felt like by 2025, this thing would just be humming, and it just ended so abruptly. And here you are on the other side of that, trying to get the White Sox franchise back to where it was. Can you just kind of explain from your perspective, from your seat, how things can change so quickly in baseball, why some things work, other things don't?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that team was loaded. They were unbelievable. Top to bottom, and in the arms,
Mm-hmm. There was Crochet and 𝗚cie and Carlos Rodon out of the bullpen in that series.
Out of the bullpen. Yes, I remember. It's one of those things that baseball's a weird game, and franchises can flip on a dime, and but that doesn't mean that rebuild has to be for long, right? It doesn't mean that it's a long process. If you get the right people, the right staff, everybody working in the right direction, if you look at, just for example, from 2018 to the 2021 athletics, like, we were really good. And then 22 rolls around, and next thing you know, Chapman's gone, Olson's gone, Bassett's gone, Simeon's gone, Manaya's gone. Like, we lose 100 games, right? Like, when that happens, like, it's a tough pill to swallow, but it doesn't mean that you're stuck in that position. And you look at the A's last year, and then you look at where they're at now, like, they're hovering around 500, and yeah, it's just one of those things. Baseball, it's weird. And you could have all the talent in the world. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. It's just a hard game. And especially once you get to the postseason, like, the season's long enough as it is. But once you get to the postseason, teams that are clicking at the right time, I mean, on paper, everybody looks good. And on paper, you have rosters where Luis Roberts hitting 7th, and you got those 3 guys coming out of the pen. But if another team just has something clicking, those are the things that, that's why it's unpredictable, and that's what makes it a great game.
Well, you stole 5 bases in your major league career. And you are right now managing a team that has 59 stolen bases as we tape this in 16 games to start the season, the most in the minor leagues. What is going on there? How is this happening? Why is this happening?
Well, first off, it starts with the players. Like, we have an extremely athletic group. And I look back at my career, and it is something that we harped on a lot in spring training. Like, we want to be aggressive. We want to learn who we are as base runners, so that when you do get to the big leagues, like, you're not hesitant to run. And I look back at my career, like, in stuff that I listened to in spring training. I told my wife this. I was like, I've learned more about baseball in the last 2 months than I felt like I did in a decade. Just because I'm hearing things from different perspectives. I'm hearing the whys instead of being told what to do. Like, because I have to give the why now. And I look at my career, and there's things that were talked about in spring training with shuffle jumps and different types of, like, ways to steal bases that I never learned. And I'm like, man, I wish I had done that. I wish in the minor leagues I had pushed the envelope a little bit more to see what I was comfortable with, to see what types of numbers I needed in terms of pop times and home, pitcher to home times for me to be safely safe. And those were areas of my career where I don't think I put enough emphasis. And the game is more than hitting in defense. Like, if you can add value in any capacity, like, it just adds value. And for these kids to buy into that and see that, hey, like, I can steal bases. I told them in spring training, I'm like, hey, stolen bases contribute to WAR as well. Stolen bases contribute to longevity. Like, hey, this guy, he's a threat on the bases. He runs the bases hard. He runs the bases right. And Doug Sisson, that he, harped on it. Like, hey, I want these guys to run, and I want them. And we did that all spring training. So I got to see them. I got to see what type of runners they were and how they handled, getting the signs and the types of jumps they got. And up until this point, like, we have a few guys that have green light, and, like, I want guys to steal. I want guys to figure out who they are. And that's, to me, what the lower levels of the minor leagues are for. And that goes for defensively, offensively, and especially base running, because that is often an overlooked aspect of the game that is a game changer. Like, that is getting into scoring position. That's going first to third. That's, we talk about the stolen bases, but I don't have a number on it, but I can't tell you how many times our guys have had hard 90s where it's caused an error, and it's caused either them to get to an extra base or someone else to get to an extra base. And those things, like, they're momentum changers. It's just doing things the right way. And Paul and Newman, Ryan, and they talk about doing winning things. And those are the little things that, like, like it's easy to say that, fielding the ground ball and getting the out and getting the hit, those are winning things. But the base running, like anybody who is a baseball person and is watching a game can see how it can change a game. And those things are the winning things that if you try to embody and you focus on and you praise and you say like, hey guy, like, we want to do those things. So I just look at a lot of the things where I think I fell short in my work and in my career, and don't want those guys to lose sight of those aspects of the game.
You guys have only been caught 7 times, so it's working. And I noticed you guys are playing the Columbia Fireflies. They were stealing on you guys a lot as well. I mean, what's been the reaction? Because, I mean, if you guys are stealing, I'm sure other teams are getting pissed off and wanting to either get you guys out unsuccessfully, or they're going to try and do it themselves. Yeah,
so that's another thing. You look at the flip side of it, and I feel remiss, like I have to say, like, we've an extremely athletic group. I mean, legitimate. I don't feel maybe like 1 or 2, 3 guys where it's like, hey, maybe we could pump the brakes, but everyone else, like, I want to give green light to. They get great jumps. They're fast. They're smart. It's not like they're stealing when they're ahead of the ball game. Like
it's not careless. It's calculated, and it's at the right place at the right time with the right guy. Yeah.
And if there is a mistake or a mess up or a time where we shouldn't have stole, then we've addressed it, or I'll put on the I'll tell them, hey, we're not running here. Like, I'll put on the red light. Like, these guys are doing a fantastic job, and they're responding really well to it. But to go back to your question, like on both sides of the game, like this just shows you how important it is not only to be kind of the aggressor in the run game, but also to be able to control the run game from the defensive side, whether that be the pitchers and their times to home, or holding runners at second and first, and then engaging our catchers and having them watch the runners and see what they're doing when the guy is at a hold or getting off the base when the guy is doing different looks. Like, and then we engage the middle infield, and our middle infield between Bonomer, Burrows, Mogollon. Like, I talked about it last night in one of my reports. Like, the guys did an extremely good job last night at holding the runners at second base. We got into an extra inning game where the guys on second base to start the inning, and we're the away team. Like, they need 1 run, and we got to hold this guy. And those guys were completely engaged, completely just locked into the process and what was going on. And there's going to be times where we're not, right? Like, that's part of the game. That's part of being in low A. But these guys have really responded, because I think from an offensive perspective, they're seeing how quickly we can speed up a defense or a pitcher. And then when that starts to happen to us, and we've talked about it in our meetings, like, it doesn't feel good to be on the other side of that. It feels like the wheels are spinning. We can't stop. We can't stop the momentum. We can't stop. We can't get in and out. Like, then errors happen. Then we start walking guys, and then like we're just all over the shop. So being able to do both at the same time, especially at this level, I mean, it's huge, and it's hard to do. And it's not done often.
All right. I have so many questions I want to ask you about some of your players. So let's get to it. And this portion of the podcast is brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places. Braden Montgomery seems like someone who is going places. He was acquired in the 𝗵𝗀 trade, and so far in Kannapolis, he's batting .346, 3 homers, 17 RBIs in 14 games. He's stolen 6 bases. He's reached base in every game that he's played. How does he compare to every other player in the league that you've seen?
He's extremely advanced. I mean, really in everything that he does. From the offense perspective, like, his at-bats are professional. I mean, he's advanced. I mean, he's a really, really good one. I have no doubt that one day he's going to be an impact type player. And he's hungry. He's hungry to work. Like, he's talking about wanting to add that base running aspect to his game, get more comfortable on the bases, knowing when to shut it down if he doesn't get a good jump. I can't say enough good things about Braden. He's a great teammate. He does things the right way on the field. From how he treats people to, it sounds little, but like, he's the last guy in the dugout cleaning up trash every single game. I can't say enough about the kid.
He's cleaning up trash.
He is the last person every single game picking up trash in the dugout.
He wants a clean dugout for everybody.
Yeah, he's a special kid. He just is. He does things the right way. Again, like, his at-bats, his takes, his ability to do damage, his situational hitting. He definitely holds himself to a high standard. He's fun to watch. Like, I get excited to watch him every day. I get excited. I'm excited for what the future has for him.
There's also Caleb Bonemer. He was drafted out of high school last year, second round by the White Sox. He's 19 years old, currently slashing .327, .456, .519. He's played shortstop and third base for you. What can you tell Sox fans about Caleb?
Just the maturity and poise that he plays with at that age. That's hard to come by. From a personality, maybe not personality, but just the way he approaches professional baseball at that age, with that poise and confidence and determination. He reminds me a lot of Matt Olson when I played with Matt in high A. Matt was 19, I was 21. Another guy, Daniel Robertson, ended up playing the big leagues with the Rays. I learned from those guys at 21. Like, I was coming out of college and I'm watching these two young bucks and like just how locked into their process they were. And I was like, all right, I got to do that if I want to be where I want to be. So his demeanor, his poise, he plays the game hard. He loves baseball. I got to pull the reins on him sometimes. I'm like, hey, buddy, we got 140 games. You never played this much. Like, I promise you we'll get our work in. But he just loves baseball. He works his tail off. He's another good one for sure.
So George Wolkow seems to have just everything you'd want in a baseball player. And he's, 6'7" to 6'8". He's so young. But he's batting 130 now with a homer and 8 RBIs. 6 for 6 in stolen bases, by the way. But listen, that's a big frame, a lot of swing and miss there. What's been his situation, his start of his season? It's not, I'm sure, how he wanted it to go. What is going on with George, you think, at the plate?
At the plate, well first off, I'll start with some extreme positives with George. We've thrown him out in center field a few times, and he has looked fantastic. Like, his jumps, his reads, he's an athletic person. He can run. Got a great arm. Like you said, he's 6 for 6 in stolen bases. He's long. He's 6'7". Like, he's 19 years old. My personal belief is he's in a position where, like, he's figuring out his levers. Like, he's still figuring out his levers against high-level pitching. Last season, he had a good year. This year, it's 14 games. We have 120-something left.
Mm-hmm.
Like, George is going to be fine. George has been putting in the work, like his BPs, his extra work. Like, he looks great. And to be honest with you, like, the growth that I've seen in him from the mental side and how he's approaching, those times where he's not getting the hits when he wants to, or redefining his definition of success. Like, he is working his butt off, and George is going to be just fine. I think, when you look at those guys that are 6'6", 6'7", you look at they got to figure out their levers. George comes from Chicago area high school where you're playing in freezing cold weather and you're probably not seeing 95. And where he's at in his journey, his marathon, he's in a good spot. Like, we look at 14 games and we could say 143. Well, he's hitting 143 or whatever, but this is just the beginning of his process. It won't be the last time in his career where he hits 143 in a 14-game span. Like, if he plays as long as I think he's going to play, he's going to have multiple stretches where in 14 games he's hitting 143, right? Like, so George is doing all the right things. He's in a great position. And the best part, like, it doesn't affect who he is as a teammate, doesn't affect who he is in the clubhouse, in the dugout. And that's a level of maturity that you have to have in this process. And I'll go back to another one of those guys. Two examples you look at. Like, I think 𝗬𝗟, Matt, if you look at his high A, his 19-year-old year, his 20-year-old year in Midland, he put up the home run numbers, but he hit 210. And he walked, and he struck out a lot. Like, that's another guy, 6'6", 6'5", with long levers, trying to figure out what his swing mechanics are. How does his body work to a 95-mile-an-hour fastball? How does his body work to a sharp breaking ball? What are the pitches that I do damage on? George being 19, he couldn't be in a better position, and he's got the right people around him. And I'm excited for George. I really am. You look at a guy, I can remember, I actually saw a post about it the other day, Ryan Healy. He played with us in Oakland and Seattle and then the Brewers a little bit. I can remember we're not talking about 13 games. Like, he went on 40-something games, like a month and a half in his first full season, hitting $120, and ended the season hitting 285. Mm-hmm. Like, these are like little lulls where, if George is hitting 340 right now, and then June rolls around and he has a 14-game stretch where he's hitting 140 and it drops him to 275. It's a little bit different of a conversation. And I think when you have a guy of his caliber, it's easy to be like, what's George doing? And it's easy to jump that, right? Like, and it's easy for him to jump that as a 19-year-old, like, but he's doing great. He really is. I've been proud of his work. He has worked his butt off in the outfield, and just the knowledge of where we're throwing the ball before the play happens, getting the ball on a one-hop to second base, keep the double play in order, the little nuances, the hitting, that stuff's going to come over time, right? Like, but honing in on situational defense, like, what are we doing in the outfield? We're hitting our cutoffs. We know where the ball is going on a relay before that play happens, and he's really picking up on those things. Again, he's another kid that is so fun to have in the clubhouse. He's got a presence, right? Like, people gravitate towards him. He's a big guy. He's got a good personality. So the guys love him, and he's a fun guy to work with.
All right, a couple more questions. Is there a player on this team that reminds you of you?
Mogollon a little bit.
I'm glad you brought him up. This guy is flying under the radar. I think he's 19, from Venezuela, and I've watched him play. There is a flair to him. Can you go on about him? People call him Mogo, right?
Mogo, Javi. I call him Javi.
Okay.
I would say this. Mogo is 2 times as fast as I ever was. He's got a better arm than I ever had. But his swing reminds me a lot of my swing. And I could not be prouder of that kid. He's also 19. We have a lot of 19-year-olds.
You do.
He never played in front of a crowd. The most he played in front of was in the ACL last year, and Lord knows that's probably 15 to 20 people. And again, I'm going back to the poise. Like, the poise, the composure, the confidence. He's been unfazed. His at-bats have been incredible. He is swinging his strikes, taking the balls. He's playing a great defense. I have so encouraged with him. Again, just an unbelievable kid. Everybody loves him, top to bottom in the organization. Like, he's a guy. To me, he's a guy. Like, everyone that we've talked about in this podcast, for me, is a future big leaguer in some capacity. To what capacity, I know you never know, right? But those guys have real opportunities to make it to the big leagues and stay in the big leagues, right?
Yeah, so everyone who's listening to this, watching this, these are White Sox fans who are going through it right now because of what's happened with the major league team. And I'm like them. I'm looking down in the minor leagues and I'm looking for hope. I'm looking for positivity. And you are in low A. That's a climb and a half to get from that point to the major leagues. You did it yourself. So you've been giving me hope in what you're saying about these guys. But I mean, you played the game. You went through the minor leagues. You've been around a lot of players who did it and didn't do it, had what it took, didn't meet expectations. Why is the group that you are managing right now, why do they give you so much hope for the future of the White Sox?
Just their age and their composure and their confidence. Again, when I was coming up in the minor leagues, like, the skill levels are totally different than they were now. Like, these kids are advanced. They have more technology and more access to information. And, like, when I was coming up, like, I would just feel like before BP, we'd go out there and throw 5-10 throws, and then we'd go take some ground balls, and then we'd take our batting practice. But these guys are so dialed in and locked into the process and the little things. And I think it has to do with age. It has to do with their age. It has to do with how confident and convicted they are in who they are already. With that said, and it's something that, I've talked to the guys about, like, for that to happen, right? Like, for those guys to get to the big league level, like, it takes complete presence of where you are in that moment. Like, talk to those, like, when you're in Kannapolis, you are in Kannapolis, right? Like, and when you're in Winston, you are in Winston. You're not looking at Birmingham. You're not looking at Charlotte, and you're certainly not looking at Chicago. Like, that will happen. Like, that will unfold as you are locked into what your process is in that moment. Like, we can't be thinking about, and of course, like, your dream and you're pushing for something, mm-hmm. and that is the duh. Like, yeah, we of course we are. But for you to get the most out of, and for you to develop into the player that you want to be when you get there, you have to be exactly where you are in that moment. And I think, looking at the guys who made it to the big leagues through my time in the minor leagues, those were the guys that were never chasing the next man ahead of them. They were just getting really good at what they were doing where they were. And I see that with these guys. These guys are extremely focused. And then, I don't know how long we got, 15, 16 games. No one has missed an early work. No one has missed a ground ball session. No one has missed a cage session. No one has, like, I mean, I'm talking about these guys are locked into what they're doing right here. And that's exciting to be around. And that's why I'm excited for them, because I think they understand that this is a process. This will unfold as you go along. Like, when you get there is when you get there. Like, you can't slow it down. You can't speed it up. You can certainly slow it down if you don't play well, but
you can stop it.
Yeah, you can stop it. But no, these guys they're awesome. So yeah, I'm proud of them and the month we've had, and it is a long season. Like, it'd be cool to do this in August and see where we stand and see how those guys have done and who's moved on and who maybe hasn't and who has been doing really well staying here through the longevity of the season.
Yeah, you know what? Let's do that in August. We'll circle back. I'd love to do that.
I might have some bags under my eyes and some gray hairs, but
it's part of the sacrifice of the job. It comes along with it, but no, because it's I watch all the levels, and there's a lot of excitement with how you guys are playing, who you have there, and and the ages of them. And I always have been like, okay, Kannapolis is Kannapolis. Let's just pump the brakes. There's a long road to the majors from there. But what I see being done there, and when I see you managing them, that gives me even more excitement for what that team can do and what these players can do for the future. So keep it going.
Well, I appreciate it. Hey, it is. They make it easy, and that is the God's honest truth. Like, when you have a group of kids that are hungry and they want to get better and they want to learn and they want to be great and they want to be the best player, best version of themselves to eventually get to the big leagues, like, my job's easy. My job's easy. So.
And I can't wait for this podcast to be existing in the universe in like 4 years. Right? And these guys who we're talking about who are so young and just getting started, they're all in the major leagues and they're all just banging. And
me too.
Yeah. So let's hope for that, and it'll be great if that happens. And we'll speak again in August. Have you back on the podcast, and we'll see where things are going with these guys.
That would be awesome.
All right, Chad. Thanks for being on here. Much appreciated. And this has been the White Sox podcast with me, Chuck Garfien. Hawk Harrelson, take it away.
All right, Chuck. This edition of the White Sox podcast is over.